Hey guys, I got a really interesting video for you today because I'm going to bring you two of these future classics. This is the Ford Focus RS and the Audi RS4, and let's be real, they never historically competed against each other, but they do today, and I'm going to show you just why. Let's get into it. So what I have here is the 2016 Ford Focus RS. Now they only brought this to the States for 2 years, and believe it or not, it was actually the first time that we even got the RS here stateside. So they ended up only selling about 7,000 of them before they ended up discontinuing it. But I think it's a pretty cool little hot hatch and definitely a future collectible. But let's pop the hood and show you what's underneath. So this is Ford's 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder, and this was not only in the Focus, it also came in the Mustang as well. But in the Mustang, it was putting out about 320 horsepower. For the Focus RS, they hopped it up to 350 horsepower. Now this one has been modified a little bit by this Cobb intake system, so it may be pumping a little bit more than stock, but I think it's going to be fairly stock. 0 to 60 times on these were about 4.7 seconds, so pretty darn quick for a hatchback. So inside the Focus RS, you get these really sporty bucket seats, which for a guy as wide as me, it's maybe a little too tight. I've recently driven the ST, which you had the option to not get these Recaro seats, and I kind of prefer that, but I think the RS only came with these Recaro bucket seats, so if you're a wider dude like me, just know that it's a tight squeeze. But you did get a 6-speed manual transmission, although this does look metal, it's just plastic. And you know, you got your typical Ford Focus center stack where you do have, you know, a touchscreen up here, and then you've got your radio controls and an automatic climate control, and then your standard gauges up front with a little screen on the inside. So I mean, it's basically a Ford Focus that's been hopped up. So it's not a super nice place to be considering the price that you would pay for this, but I think they're pretty cool. Now, outside, this really is a Ford Focus. If you're not an automotive enthusiast and you're just someone that drives a normal car every day, you see this going down the road, chances are you're just gonna think that it's any other Ford Focus. But it really is the hottest hatch that Ford made at the time. And the easiest way to tell that is this rear wing on back that says RS. I think that's a really good look. And then if you go out back, this one, oh, we've got some more modifications here with this larger dual exhaust, but they did come from the factory with dual exhaust, just not quite this big. Now what I have here is a 2008 Audi RS4, and like the Focus, it had a limited production run. They only built these from 06 to 08, and they only ended up bringing about 2,000 of them stateside. And you could get these in a sedan like you see here, or even rarer is like the Avant or wagon style, or the convertible. Now under the hood of the Audi is a 4.2 liter V8. Now you could also find this in the Audi R8 at the time, except obviously they put it mid-engine instead of front engine, but this put out about 420 horsepower, and it was doing 0 to 60 in about 4.8 seconds. So you can see the 0 to 60 times are pretty darn similar. Even though this has more power than the Focus, it also is significantly heavier, and I think that's why they're so close in performance. All right, so the Audi RS4 on the inside, here's some similarities. These seats also made by Recaro. The manual transmission, 6-speed, just like the Focus RS, and just like the Focus RS, it is the only option of transmission that you could get here in the States. And then, you know, I mean, you've got an aftermarket radio here, but obviously this interior is a little more outdated because this car is 8 years older than the Focus. But a couple interesting things that I like about it is you do get this kind of weird, I don't know what this would hold, maybe your ID or credit cards or something. You do get a sport button, And you do have a rear sunshade, which pretty nice little feature. And I will say, even though these seats are made by the same manufacturer, they are, for a wider guy like me, significantly more comfortable. And just like in the Focus, you do get a screen with the gauges up front, and then a really nice leather-wrapped steering wheel. Now, the RS4 is based on Audi's B7 platform, but there were a few differences between this and the standard A4, starting with the flared fenders, both front and back, which give it a really good mean stance. And then that V8 badge on the side there tells you just what it's packing underneath the hood. And then you do get some really cool, aggressive side skirts. And out back, you get these dual exhausts, which this one I think is aftermarket, but even from the factory, you did get a cool dual exhaust. All right, so getting in and driving the Focus RS, I will say, you know, this is a really cool car. I mean, it's just so interesting that the Focus RS was offered for a long time in Europe, and us over here in the States, we were always complaining, like, why don't you bring that here? And then they did, and we were all so happy that it was finally here, and we thought it would be a nice long run of having the Focus RS, but sadly, shortly after that happened, Ford realized that pretty much like all of their cars and anything that's like not an SUV was just not selling as well as they were hoping, and so they discontinued the Focus along with the Fusion and the Taurus and so many vehicles that we just don't get anymore. And it's such a shame. I mean, Europe still gets the Focus, but in the States here we don't get it anymore, and it's kind of a bummer. I think we're all missing out on having this really cool hot hatch. But let's get it out on the road and see how 350 horsepower performs. Oh yeah. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Yeah, that's fun. That is a lot of fun, actually. And I will say, I'm not usually a huge fan of aftermarket exhaust, but this one, it sounds pretty good. I mean, you got some nice pops and burbles there, and it's a really fun driving experience. And the more I sit in these seats, you know, the more they're kind of conforming to my wider body, and they're not too bad. You know, I kind of said early on that they were slightly uncomfortable, and you know, once you're in it for a little bit, you get kind of used to it. The leather is nice and soft. They're not bad. They're pretty good seats. All right, so hopping in and driving the Audi RS4 now. I have always wanted to drive one of these. These are such a cool car. And here's the elephant in the room about the Audi RS4, right? They're not known to be reliable cars. They're known to be a little maintenance heavy, like a lot of Audis, to be honest with you. And yeah, they're just, you know, they tend to have a few more issues than the Focus will. Now, neither of them are known to be like reliable Toyotas or anything like that. These are performance cars, right? But the Audi, you know, you probably want to plan to spend a little bit more on maintenance than you would with the Focus, especially considering this is 8 years older. But let's see how it accelerates. Oh man, you really feel the difference there. Holy cow. Yeah, that is woo, that feels significantly faster than the Focus. I don't know if this is 100% stock. Obviously the exhaust has been modified, but I don't know if like the engine and the, you know, the computer are 100% stock. But woo, man, that has some balls. That is a lot of fun to drive. Few things to note though. One, the suspension on this is definitely softer than that on the Focus RS. And I mean, that's kind of to be expected. This is a more luxury-oriented sedan than the Focus is. I mean, the Focus is a hatch, but anyways, the other thing too is this is a dealer vehicle. I am not going to slam this into gears. I'm just, you know, giving it your typical acceleration if you were to floor it off the starting line, and I'm not trying to burn the tires or do any damage to the clutch or anything like that, so I'm not trying to be super hard on these. But let's give it another squirt here. Oh yeah. And the other thing that I just noticed too is this actually has what appears to be an 8,000 RPM red line, whereas that Focus I think only has about a 6,500 RPM red line, which you'd kind of expect the opposite. You'd kind of expect the 4-cylinder to be a little more high revving, but this V8 you can rev it all the way out to 8,000 RPMs, and boy does it sing when you do. I know guys, I can hear you clicking away. These cars don't compete, but hear me out, because both of these are priced between $25,000 and $30,000, depending on, you know, the mileage of them, the condition, and things like that. But they really do, at least as far as price goes, they do compete. Not only that, they're both 6-speed manual. They both have a 0 to 60 time that's almost identical. They both have all-wheel drive. They both have seating for 4. So I really do think that these cars, right now, at least today, compete against each other. I mean, if we were talking 2 years ago, this was like a $10,000 to $15,000 car, but today, regularly, these are trading between $25,000 and $40,000, just like the Focus RS. But I would like to know what you guys think in the comments section below. Am I crazy for thinking that these two directly compete with each other? Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Brendan and Cole behind the camera, and a big shout out to Jesse over at Booth Motors. He set this up, and both of these cars are currently for sale on their lot. So if you're interested in one of them, hit them up. But for everything else, check out all TFL. Take care.